Good afternoon, everyone, and a very warm welcome to our Infant School Webinar. We thank you for joining us, whether that is from within Singapore or if you're joining this Zoom webinar platform from overseas. We will get started in just a few minutes once most of today's attendees have had a chance to join the webinar. So thank you for your patience and please bear with us till then. In the meantime, I'm going to invite you to enjoy a video that gives you a glimpse of our college community. Enjoy this, and we'll be back with you in just a few minutes. Okay, so welcome again, everyone. I know that we still have some attendees who will be joining us in the next few minutes. Please go ahead and do so and get settled onto your Zoom platform. I'm going to go ahead and do some introductions and tell you a little bit about today's program. So my name is Malika Ramdas, and I'm Director of Admissions at the college, and I will be your host for today's webinar. I'll take the next few minutes to just tell you a little bit about our program for the webinar and to go through a few guidelines to make sure that we have a successful event. So as you know, this year we are offering a combination of webinars for our open days, along with on-campus in-person events. And you have a chance to still sign up for any of those, the webinars, as well as the on-campus events that have not yet closed for registration. So we invite you to go ahead and do that. We will be hosting an on-campus infant school open day at our East Campus this Thursday, the 14th of September. And then at the Dover campus, we have opportunities for you to get to know our infant school and the campus on September 20th, as well as September 25th. So if you've already signed up for any of these events, we very much look forward to welcoming you to our campuses. So today will be devoted to the infant school and to helping you understand more about our infant school learning program and how we support our youngest learners. So for the next 45 minutes or so, you will hear about our infant school program from both our primary school principals. And then we will come back for a question and answer session with our vice principals for our infant schools on both campuses, as well as myself. Now, while we are in our presentation, you are welcome to submit any questions that you have via the Q&A button in Zoom. So please take a moment to identify where that is. And as your questions come in, some of my colleagues behind the scenes will be responding to some of the questions that we can help you with as we go along. And they will be sending you some links to more information and also answering some of the questions. However, we will save a bunch of questions for the actual live Q&A period. So please keep your questions coming, and we'll try to get to as many of them as we can. Do keep the focus of your questions on the learning program and on the infant school student experience, because we already did an admissions webinar, which I hope you had a chance to tune into, but if you didn't, that presentation is already recorded and now available on our website. And you should have received a link to that as well in your reminder for today's event. So we will not include a formal presentation about admissions today, but again, we encourage you to look at our recorded webinar from last week. And as you listen to today's presentation, do take note that it will also be recorded and available for you to look at again, or if you're not able to stay through to the end, to catch up on what you missed. And that'll be posted within a day or two after today's event. Okay, so with that, it's my very great pleasure to introduce you to our two primary school principals, Pauline Markey at our East Campus and Brian O'Maloan on our Dover campus. Over to you, Pauline.
Thank you, Malika. And welcome to our Infant School Day, Open Day. As Malika said, my name is Pauline Markey and I'm the primary school principal at our East campus. As such, I have responsibility for our 4 to 11-year-olds, K1 to grade 5. Our primary school is split up into 2 sections. So the infant school, which is K1, 2 and grade 1, and then the junior section, grade 2 to grade 5. But today we're going to concentrate on our wonderful infant school. The choice of school we make for our children is perhaps one of the most important decisions we'll ever make. And this is actually no different for us as educators. I've been an educator for well over 30 years now, and more than 20 of those years have been in international education. And like you, I carried out my research because I wanted to find a school that matched my family's values and my philosophy as an educator. I can honestly say I have not been disappointed with UWC. It's my 7th year here, and I'm joined by my husband, who is a teacher in the high school, and my daughter graduated 3 years ago and is studying law in Dublin. I also have a son, and he is a teacher in the UK. I know I'm biased, but we can honestly say we have the best job in the world, and we are passionate about what we do here at UWCSEA. We are delighted that you could join us to learn more about our wonderful school, and we really hope to meet as many of you as possible on Thursday on our on-campus day, where you'll see the school in action, you'll experience our truly exciting learning environment and see where the magic really happens. But most importantly, you will see our students at work. Brian.
Thank you, Pauline. So hi, my name is Brian O'Maloan, which is a Gaelic name from Ireland, which causes difficulties for people. Even Irish people struggle with it. So the first sign that you have that we are a caring and kind institution is that the children here call me Mr. O. So nice and simple. So I joined the school in the year 2000 as a grade 2 teacher, and I spent, I think, 5 years as head of grade 4 and then vice principal in charge of student well-being. And I became the junior school principal when East Campus opened. And I think in 2020, if I'm not mistaken, we joined the infants and the juniors here into one primary school. So I took on infants in 2020. So it's a large school and it can be a very demanding job, but it really helps that I love it. So I have 3 children, all of whom went through infants. 2 of them have graduated now. One of them got a job this week, so she's off the payroll. And my the middle one is a boy, and he's just starting in Belfast this week to do a degree in music. And I have my youngest one is in grade 11, about to do her IB. So yeah, they all had a fantastic time in infants, all had different teachers as it turned out, and all had a wonderful, wonderful grounding for what lay ahead for them in junior school and in middle school and beyond. So next slide, please. And I just want to say that, of course, we could absolutely not achieve what we do without a huge support group of teachers and principals and TAs. And so later on, during the question and answer session, you will meet with our fantastic vice principals who are in charge of infants. Vicky Wright here on the Dover campus and Tracy Jockman on the East campus. And you will be hearing from them later on. Okay, I'll talk to you later. Over to you, Pauline.
Thanks, Brian. We'd like to begin today by sharing with you a little bit about UWC, our global connections and our mission. So when you join UWCSEA, you are not only joining our school, you're joining a global community. Our founder, Kurt Hahn, opened the very first UWC Atlantic College in Wales in 1962. And today, as you can see here on the slide, the movement has grown to over 18 colleges all over the world, connected by our shared mission and purpose. So, not only welcome today, but welcome to the UWC International Movement. Next slide, please. On this slide, you can see our mission: to make education a force to unite people, nations and cultures for peace and a sustainable future. And it's our mission that we develop our global citizens to embrace and work around. This is the lens through which we view everything in our holistic learning programme. Now, I would guess when you first looked at our mission, the words peace, unite and sustainability probably stood out, and maybe even the word force. And these are really important elements and important for us. But for us, by far the most important word in there is people. UWCSEA is all about relationships and connections. We have the most engaging, articulate, capable and curious young people who we get to share our learning with every day. There isn't a day goes by, actually, when I don't learn something new for our students or I have my eyes open to a different perspective. We also have a committed, passionate and experienced group of staff who care for each and every individual and guide them in their learning. We don't just mean the teachers and the teaching assistants in this sense. We mean every other part of our community, from the catering team, from the facilities, our admin staff, the specialist teachers who teach PE, music and languages and art, and everyone who's playing a part in providing the optimum conditions in which our students can thrive. And last but by no means least are our wonderful parent community, who are supportive, engaged, diverse, and eager and willing to support families and our students. We look forward to you joining this in whatever capacity is correct for you. Next slide, please. So we are a K-12 school and we're a big school. We make no bones about that. But where your child spends the majority of the day is in a much, much smaller school section. So, for example, even in primary, we split it into those two sections as mentioned, infants and juniors. But the community benefits of being in a K-12 school structure are many. And one of these is the great relationships we see develop between our younger and our older students. And those older students act as fantastic role models for our younger ones. An example of this could be in our buddy programme. So every one of our primary classes has a class in the high school who are their buddies, and they spend time with each other, learning together and engaging in fun activities. We also have every primary class adopting a boarder. So that's one of our scholars from our boarding programme who come along, and there's this reciprocal relationship where the classes and the classes' families welcome them into their hearts and into their houses and actually learn from each other. This is a key benefit to our scholars who often have left their families at home and they're probably missing them. Next slide, please. So you'll see here our guiding statements, and that's exactly what they do. They guide every decision we make at our college. We offer a values-based education that will develop our students as individuals and to be active members of a global community. The end goal for us is to see our students grow into happy, articulate, passionate young people who are confident and understand their place in the world and know that they can make a difference. So, what does a typical day look like for one of these amazing young people? Though there is no typical day in an infant school, let's have a look at this next slide.
Okay, so thank you, Pauline. As Pauline said, no day is ever identical, as you might imagine, but in trying to work out what we should share with you today, because it's so much information we could give you, we really wanted to try and give you a feel for what it was like. So a typical day, or the structure of the day, the children tend to arrive by car, by bus. Some of them even walk up the drive here in the Dover campus because they live nearby. Between 7:30 and 8 o'clock. So lessons kind of begin at 8 o'clock and the children will arrive then. They will go straight to class. Grade ones can play for a while. There is an option of a little bit of brain food if they want it. And then every classroom will start with a morning meet like a circle time. And just to make connections with the kids and see how they're feeling. Sometimes they will put up on a wall how they're feeling today, and the teacher will catch up with them later if they say they're feeling sad. What you saw in those two videos was the two different campuses. And so, yeah, we have slightly different buildings, and facilities are the same, but they're in different places. So, for example, on the Dover campus, we have a walking bus from the bus bay up to the classroom, and the kids promenade along and say hello to everyone they see. And so they're with TAs and teachers, and they're met from the cars as well by TAs. And the kids, we want them to get independent and to get up to class by themselves. But if they're not feeling like that yet, there's lots of help, and we take them by the hand to class until they don't need that anymore. And then most of their day is spent with the classroom teacher, just like in most schools. On top of that, in their week, they will see specialist teachers for music and for PE, physical education, sport, and for their language choice. So then the day ends at 2 o'clock unless they're doing activities, which go on until 3 o'clock. And then again, we phase that in for them because it's very tiring, a very long day for them when they're 4 and 5 years of age. So they can do activities until about 3, and then we increase the amount of activities they can do as they get older. Okay, next slide, please. So let's talk a little bit about how we do the learning. So you can see there our wheel, which shows the 5 elements of our program, and it's purposely designed as a wheel because none of those elements in our minds and in our way of thinking and in our way of kind of trying to deliver a program of holistic education, none of them is more important than the other. So even though we say that, we know that academics, for example, takes more time and takes more budget. And it is way more time is devoted to academics than to any other element, but we weave everything else through it. So even though it's not equal in terms of it's not more equal than others, as they say, it's not more important than anything else, but it does need more time and more attention. So so we intentionally display it like that. So next slide, please. So the first important thing to say is that we deliver our program in an interdisciplinary way. Discipline, you might use the word subjects or individual subjects or paradigms. So we do think in terms of our concepts in the design of our curriculum. We think about maths and science and humanities and all those things. But for the children, little children don't put boundaries between those subjects. And so we deliver those things in a kind of a mixed way, and we interweave it. So the analogy we use is that we don't call it like we don't put all the ingredients in and make soup. It's more like a chunky salad. You can still see the subjects in there, but it's all mixed up. So that's how we do it. So it's very responsive as well to the children's needs. We want them to feel like they have choice and some voice and engagement in their own learning. But very much the teachers and the school are deciding what are those learning experiences that we put in front of them. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so this is a question that lots of international schools answer. So when you have 80 nationalities in a school, whose history do you teach? And so in talking about this part for the next few minutes, I'm very conscious that you're not just choosing an infant school, you're also choosing what happens beyond for a lot of you into junior and middle and high. So in talking about this, I am very much talking about what happens to them later on. So we don't have any particular political driver that's making us teach a certain version of history or a certain version of citizenship. There are schools in town who are who deliver, for example, a British education or an Australian-based education or a Canadian-based education. And they do that really well. They're very, very good schools here that do that really well. The American School, for example, is one of those. And for some of you, if you know you're going to be here for a couple of years, leaving, say, Scotland and returning to Scotland in 2 years' time, then that might be a consideration for you. But don't be fooled by that. I came here for 2 years in 1994, so you never know how what way the road turns. So what we do is we could answer that question by teaching a little bit of everybody's history, for example, which you can imagine would be unworkable. Or we could have decided, let's just hang our hat on whatever the end of that sentence is, a British education or an American education. But what we do instead is we look at overarching concepts. So things like conflict or migration, and we teach through those, and we pick content that illustrates those concepts in a kind of a spiral way. And so rather than deciding that we're going to teach this version of Singapore citizenship or make it Asian-centric or Eurocentric, we try and do it concepts that are common to all of humanity. So let's take a very quick look at the next video, and that explains the thinking of a concept-based education.
What is concept-based learning? Concept-based learning is centered around big ideas. Ideas so universal that they transfer across place, time, and situation. Content is important, so students must acquire knowledge and skills within each discipline. But the ability to make sense of their knowledge and skills in the world around them is just as important. This doesn't happen by accident. Students are given a variety of experiences so that they develop conceptual understandings, significant ideas that transfer to new contexts. This ensures that they thrive in a complex and unknown future. The UWCSEA concept-based curriculum leads to the IB diploma in grades 11 and 12 and is developed from our mission. Our educational goal is that students embrace challenge and take responsibility for shaping a better world. To do this, they must develop higher order thinking skills and apply their learning to diverse situations. Because our community is so international and diverse, our students bring a wide range of experiences, knowledge, and skills with them when they join us. A concept-based curriculum allows them to connect their prior learning to our experiences at school, as well as develop deep understanding. How do we develop conceptual understanding in our students? Concept-based learning goes hand in hand with learners having a diverse and broad range of experiences. This is achieved through all 5 elements of our holistic learning program: academics, activities, outdoor education, personal and social education, and service. We explicitly plan for concept-based learning by asking conceptual questions and teaching through inquiry, exposing students to content that stretches and deepens their thinking, fostering dialogue and collaboration, asking students to generalize and apply their ideas to new contexts. Together, these experiences support the development of conceptual understanding in our students.
So you can see there the importance of children being able to transfer their ideas and concepts. And this is critical to them applying it to learning not only in their own sphere, but in the wider world and to the future. In the infant school, we very much view play as a vehicle for learning. So playful learning is designed, aligned, and intentional, and it takes on many different forms. We try to keep the learning contextual for the students. Through play, we nurture social skills as well as academic and intellectual skills. Play is often complex, and this allows children to develop the qualities and the mindset of a researcher. Carefully observing the children's engagement prompts learning across all areas and determines where the adult will guide the children next in their learning. Next slide, please. We believe that the physical environment is a central component of this learning. In fact, we call it the third teacher. We strive to create learning spaces that invite and promote research and autonomous discovery, both for individual children, but also when they're working collaboratively in groups. Everything we set up is done intentionally, and a shared desire to provoke the children's thinking and build on their already existing understanding. So, if you're lucky enough to come on campus on Thursday, when you visit our classrooms and pods, you should see flexible spaces, different arrangements of furniture and resources, evidence of the children's voice on display as we make their thinking visible, and interesting and creative provocations or invitations for the students to engage with. We work really hard to construct an environment that allows for the children's interests and questions so that we can lead their learning. Thank you, Brian.
Hey, thank you, Pauline. So in looking at that, then, we also like to say that it's an inquiry-driven pedagogy that we use. So obviously when the children turn up to us in August, they already have an enormous amount of existing understanding and knowledge that they bring with them. And so we believe strongly that a child with unlimited potential is eager to interact with and contribute to the world. And so we want to nurture that curiosity and imagination. Collaboration is really the key. And so, as you might imagine, and you'll know this from your own work, it's less anxiety driving if you're working in a group than if you're being responsible for something by yourself. And children are no different. And so they'll try stuff out, they'll attempt, they'll make mistakes, they'll have successes, and they will do that more easily when in a group or with a partner. So it's very important. So we do value the children's contributions, and as much as possible, we want them to be part of co-constructing the learning, but very much the teachers and the school's written curriculum is deciding the parameters of that. So it's not that the children get to go off and do their own thing all the time. It isn't a democracy in terms of what they learn, but they do have a lot of choice within the parameters that we want for them. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so like I said at the beginning, a lot of the time and thinking and a lot of the resources and budget of the school goes into the academics. But we do want you to hear a little bit more about everything else that we do and the other 4 elements. So there are, as I told you, 5 interlinking, interwoven, mixed, whatever way you want to call it. But we tend to tack everything onto the academics as much as we can. And so I think Pauline is going to talk a little bit about the personal social education next.
Thank you, Brian. So personal and social education, which we actually call PSE, is all about how students understand themselves and their relationships with others. It's a foundational element, as Brian has mentioned, of our programme, and it's the key that really unlocks all other areas of our learning programme. When children have that ability to recognise and regulate their emotions, form friendships and work both independently and collaboratively towards goals, they then use that learning in their PSE programme to become active, self-directed learners. These approaches promote healthy relationships, it builds resilience in the children, and it caters to their well-being also. It's embedded into the daily routines and morning meetings you heard about before, and it's highlighted throughout their learning activities all through our programme. The PSE curriculum, though, not only teaches children the importance of social, emotional and relationship skills, but it also helps to ensure that our school is a safe place and a supportive place. So working together as a community, we prioritise protecting our children and keeping them safe. One of the ways we do this is by teaching explicitly safe behaviours to our children and conducting safeguarding lessons in the infant schools. As part of these safeguarding lessons, we ensure that every individual child can name trusted adults, people whose words and actions make them feel safe, both at home and at school. That home-school partnership is essential in safeguarding our students And we have many staff who play a significant role in this with their expertise, such as a social emotional learning specialist, our counselling and wellness team as well. Next slide, please. So you can see here that the PSE programme intentionally develops our UWC values as well as our skills and qualities. And these skills and qualities and the values are as appropriate for our 4-year-olds as they are for our 14-year-olds or our 18-year-olds. The values in the profile are derived directly from our mission, and they're supported by current research in education. Through developing these skills and qualities with our children, members of our community lead by example, embrace change, and take responsibility for helping children to see they can shape a better world. While we teach and value each of those skills and qualities separately, they're interconnected and obviously impact on each other. But the values are incredibly important, and we look to teach them explicitly about how they mean. That might be in lessons, in class, through assemblies, right across the curriculum, as well as modelling them ourselves and providing loads of opportunities for children to practice them in all areas of our curriculum. Our next element is outdoor education. Brian?
Thank you, Pauline. So yeah, so then again, weaving outdoor education into what we do, it's an essential, engagement with nature is essential, not only for teaching sustainability, but also for physical and emotional well-being. So again, as the kids go through their careers in the school, we want them to know and know about themselves that they are not just an intellectual person, but they're also a physical person, and that they have responsibilities towards the environment, for example. Excuse me. So we want them to learn about the environment, and so we do that from the environment. And really our aim is that they are learning for the environment by doing that. So if we look at the next slide, that's actually a group of grade 1 children looking at tadpoles, actually, is what they're doing there. And so if I were to ask you, if they're studying them and looking at the life cycle and counting them and imagining where, wondering where they go next, they're predicting, they're looking at the risks to those tadpoles. That's just on our campus. And so, it's a much more engaging way for them to learn. And so in K1, for example, it's integrated through every day. They have, we have a number of outdoor play spaces teachers use, and we encourage environmental exploration and environmental stewardship. So we get outside and teach about the environment from the environment, but it's really, a lot of it is for the environment. Next slide, please. And then we come to service learning. So really, what we want the kids to know as they get older, again, we're starting at the age of 4. We want them to be aware of social issues and caring about other people. We also want them to know how to do that, be able. So we talk about being aware, able, and active, because we want them to do something about it as well as they get older. But what can 4-year-olds do? Well, there's a lot they can do. And so we talk a little bit about, service begins with me, service begins with my community. We talk about the people that help us in the community and how we can help in the community. And again, as we go through the school and as they go into junior school, middle school, and onto high school, we try to teach them that they mustn't feel guilty about all the things that are wrong with the world and all the inequality. It's not their fault. We ask them, is it your fault? No. Is there something you can do about it? Yes. And that's what we want them to do. So it's very much being aware, being able, and being active. Say next slide, please. Okay, and the last element in our circle is activities. So again, this really comes a lot back to Kurt Hahn's thinking about getting children and young adults to understand that there is a lot more in them than they actually might think. So what we're quite good at as a school, I think, is pushing kids in the back very safely and very gently into areas that they might not be comfortable with. And that can be in performance, it can be in outdoor ed, it can be in all kinds of different areas, and it can be in academics. Just that idea that there are things they know and there are things they don't know yet. And so it's very much about that mindset. And so activities is a fantastic way for them to explore lots and lots and lots of different things and they learn something that they love, they learn some things that they hate, and we hope then as they get older that they sacrifice that kind of breadth of activities and for more depth and to choose things, more specific things as they get older. And that's true again for music, it's true for performance, it's true for sport, all kinds of different things. So the idea is that they would have a grand passion as they go on into adulthood. But there's a massive breadth of activities offered in the primary school and in infant school particularly. There's all kinds of things that they can do, and we do that between 2 o'clock and 3 o'clock. Okay, next slide please. I think it's you, Pauline.
Thank you, Brian. So there you have it. There's the full circle of our 5-element learning programme. As we've said, each one of those elements is equally important and of equal value in the successful pursuit of our college values, goals and mission. But we know that we could not possibly do this alone without a special group of people. Next slide, please. Our wonderful parent body and the broader college community. We do believe our school is a special place to be where our students can thrive. We understand, though, that that's only possible in partnership with our parents. We work really hard to nurture this partnership, as our parents not only support our children's learning, but they support the school as a whole and pay particular attention to supporting families and each other. They plan a wide range of activities for parents and families, from exercise classes to service opportunities, etc. And they even have dedicated nationality and language reps who can support new families in particular. We couldn't do the work without them, and we are incredibly fortunate to share in the learning journey of their children. Next slide, please. So, as mentioned several times, community is integral to our infant school, as we believe the real strength lies in that collaboration. Our student voice is really important too, so every voice is valued and celebrated, and every individual contributes to the success of the group. We adopt a pedagogy of respectful and responsive thinking alongside the relationships built and a shared sense of belonging. These are the standout qualities that we nurture in our infant school community. That notion that no one person is responsible for the children, rather it is a collective effort at all times. Next slide, please. So that brings us to the end of our presentation today, and we greatly thank you for your time and for considering us for your child or children. We hope we've given you a valuable insight into our college, our community, and most importantly, into our infant school. It's a place where our students flourish and gain a deeper understanding of themselves, their place not only in our school, but also in that wider community, and they understand their responsibility to others. We feel it's a very special place and we're immensely proud of it. But why take that from us? Let's listen to the most important people themselves.
I like that we can be creative. You could learn a lot. How to read. Making friends. I like football outside. I like what we're learning about. I like this school with a lot of good friends. I learn lots of things. I like that we get to learn about numbers. Writing workshop, discovery, reading workshop, English. Back flips and front flips on the rings and gymnastics. Play, paint, color. We have to be safe. Look where you're going. Respect each other and the environment. They help us when something's really hard. The teachers don't shout at kids when they get something wrong. They just ask them, can you try again? If we don't know how to spell something, they tell us to sound it out. They let us have creative time for a long time, and then when we need to learn, it gives me inspiration of what I need to build next. Making new friends. Playing the playground and discovering out new stuff. So then with the plants, when one falls down off the thing, I can pick it up and make potions. I never made a potion in my life. Was playing in the playground. Was playing pirates. And I also playing outside with soccer. They're nice, funny, nice, and cool. They're just really good. The teachers are good at listening. By cheering them up and playing with them, making new friends with them. It's really fun in the school, and other kids and teachers help other people. I'll tell them, come to UWC, it's gonna be really fun. There's so much kids that it will be fun. You can ask the teacher for some help, or you don't have to ask the teacher, you can ask anybody. If someone's sitting lonely on the chairs down there, we can go and ask them if they want to play with us. It's okay, I'm gonna hold your hand together. I'll say, hello, come on, with me. Bye-bye, camera.
Okay. Sorry, I got lost watching that. I've seen it about 20 times. I'll still get lost in it. Okay, so that's it from Pauline and from me. And we're going to hand over now to the Q&A with our vice principals who have responsibility for the infant school. And they will answer questions. And thank you for the questions that have been coming in already about the learning program. So can I just remind you to put your questions in using the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, and our head of marketing and communications, Lucy, will be moderating this particular part of the session. And then we will also be joined by Malika, our admissions director, who you met at the beginning. So we also have other admissions officers who are answering your questions in the background behind the scenes. And so you're very welcome to ask questions related to either the infant school program or the admissions process. Okay, so I think I'm handing back over to you. Am I, Malika?
I can take over now for the Q&A, actually. Thank you, Brian, and thank you so much for both Brian and Pauline for that presentation. We're actually going to have our vice principals, Tracy Jockman and Vicky Wright, join us for the Q&A session. So I will just hand over to Tracy and Vicky to introduce themselves before we then move to some questions.
Thank you, Lucy. My name is Vicky. I am one of the vice principals here in the primary school, but as Brian said, I look after the infant school here on Dover. I've been the vice principal since 2020, and I've been an early educator for, can't believe I'm saying this, but over 20 years now. I'm really fortunate to work here, and I'm also fortunate to be able to bring my children to school with me. I have a child in grade 2 and grade 4. And I have the unique lens now of being a teacher and a leader and also a parent at this school. And both my children have been so happy. In fact, my daughter is home today unwell and was most sad that she couldn't come to school. So I think that's a testament to how much she loves being at school. And I'll just hand over to my colleague, Tracy at East, who will tell you a little bit more about her.
Hi, everyone. Tracy Jockman. So same role as Vicky, one of the primary school vice principals. And I have responsibility for the infant school. And I always say that I think we have the best job in the school. We have the most fun getting to walk into those classrooms every day with such energy and enthusiasm for learning. So this is my 6th year here at East in this current role. And previous to that, I've been in a variety of international schools for over 20 years in international schools. And unfortunately, Vicky, I'm creeping up to nearly 30 years with the actual teaching part of it. But always, I've taught in different areas, and I always end up back with the younger ones, because I just think it's such an amazing place to be, and I love to see the learning that happens there. I also have 2 children within the school, in high school though now, so I get to see the other end of it as they tackle high school, which is really interesting as well. So I think what we're going to do is hand over to Lucy, who's going to ask us some questions.
Terrific. Thank you so much, Tracy. Lots of terrific questions that have come in, and some of them are overlapping. So we'll try and cover them as best we can. The first one is to do with languages, and perhaps you'd like to kick this off, Tracy. The question is around what are the language provisions in infant school. Some parents are interested in the number of Chinese lessons, Mandarin lessons available for our students. We've had a question about whether we run a bilingual program, and we've had a question around Japanese. So perhaps we could touch on the home language program as well. I'll hand over to you to start that.
Okay, so when there are some slight differences between East and Dover, Vicky and I will chime in with any of the differences. But we have 4 40-minute sessions of languages a week in the infant school. So from K1 to grade 5, students learn a foreign language within the school. And in the infant school, at East, they have a choice between French, Spanish or Mandarin from K1 through to grade 1, and then all the way through, actually. And that's slightly different on Dover, and Vicky will talk to that in a moment. We also have a home language program, so we don't have Japanese within our day, but we do have that as one of our options in our home language program. So that is really about if your child speaks that language at home or it's a heritage language, and those sessions run multiple times, but after school. So they're not part of the school day. Those will run after school. Vicky, do you want to add in?
Yeah, and the only difference at Dover is that our K1 and K2 program, all our students learn Chinese as their foreign language. And then in grade 1, they can choose between Spanish and Chinese. And then in grade 2, French becomes an option as well. And then that goes through till grade 5. And we also offer a home language program. So many languages now, we're running out of classrooms because there's so many that happen. And the children come together. It's quite nice, actually, because they come together from within the infant school. So we have different age groups together, and it's a really lovely language community. But as Tracy said, it's the same criteria. It's families that speak that language at home or have it as a heritage language.
And I should have said also, sorry, Lucy, that we do not have a bilingual program. So that was asked as well.
Terrific. Thank you both. Now, this question, I think, was actually answered. However, I'm going to ask it again just in case we had a few late joiners to the session. So this is around the style of curriculum. And the question is sort of, is it an American style curriculum, a British style curriculum, and how do we select the textbooks for each class? So Tracy, do you want to start with that one, or Vicky, whoever wants to jump in? Tracy's bigger on my screen. So
we talk all the time, so Tracy can take this and I'll jump in.
So we have a bespoke concept-based curriculum that is international. So it's not based on British or American curriculum. And when that was created, it is a K-12 curriculum. So when that was created, it was created about that, having that alignment and it being international, and a number of different curriculums around the world were looked at as that was developed. So we do not have resources, or we do not have set textbooks. We select resources based on the curriculum and on our local context and connections that the children are making. So, for example, case studies that we might choose to investigate or inquire into, an example would be like the local garden spaces that some of the classes investigate when they're learning about living things and what living things need to survive and thrive. So rather than looking in a textbook, they might use research materials that they get from the library, but there's no set textbook that they would use. We have a carefully crafted curriculum with the same conceptual understandings and benchmarks that all teachers are working towards. but the way that they do that may look slightly different in different classes depending on the interests. For instance, one class might have gone to look at the tadpoles and been really interested in learning about the living things there, and another may have been looking at plants. The same concepts, the same questions, the same understanding they're coming to. They might be investigating in different ways depending on the interests and needs of the particular class that they're in.
Thank you, Tracy. Maybe, Vicky, I could hand over to you then to answer a related question, which is actually around how English and numeracy are then taught using this concept-based learning. So we've just heard an example from Tracy. Perhaps you'd like to take the English and numeracy question?
Yeah, and I think I know Brian spoke about this, how we try and make connections between subjects, but I think maths is one of the subjects that we do often teach standalone, but for young children in a playful way. So when you think about conceptual learning in maths, it's really about how do we become a mathematician? We're not really wanting children to be a human calculator, for want of a better word, where they can tell you instantly the answers and they know one way to create an answer. We want children to learn the skills of problem solving, how to be able to adapt. I'll sometimes say I teach in grade 1 and I teach maths, and I'll say, oh, that's just one way to get the answer. How many ways can we come up with? So we're always trying to teach children to be more creative with their thinking, because we believe that will produce mathematicians. And that conceptual understanding goes all the way from K to grade 12. But we have specific benchmarks in each grade level to help guide teachers so that we're ensuring children are meeting the required standard in each grade. And very similar in English. Some people call it English, some people call it literacy, other people call it languages. Really what we want to create is a love of reading and writing. We know that if young children see themselves as readers and writers, they will be more likely to pick up a book and read. They'll be more likely to pick up a pen and paper and write. So we're always trying to develop this, knowing that young children develop very differently. So not all children learn to walk on the same day in the same age. It's the same with reading and writing. It looks very different for each child. And we're fortunate to have a curriculum that responds to that. So thinking about what we said about textbooks, we definitely don't work with a system where if once you've done page 3, you move on to page 4. It's much more about where the children are at and meeting them at that point.
Thank you, Vicky. That's a great segue into a couple of questions that are related. So one question, which was around the concept-based learning approach, asks if there's a risk of students gaining a superficial understanding of the material, and if so, how do we hinder that? How do we mitigate that risk? And it also then leads into another question, which I think you've touched on just now, around the learning goals and the outcomes. How do we actually assess children? That this question is specific to a 4-year-old. However, I'm sure it's probably a question on a number of parents' minds. How do we actually know when the children are meeting their learning goals?
Do you want me to jump in to start with there?
Yeah, Tracy, you can start.
Sorry, I wasn't sure who was taking that one. So there was a lot in that. One of the things we definitely do a lot of in the infant school, especially in K1, is we are doing a lot of observing and documenting what we hear, what we see, and then providing experiences that nudge a child to the next step in their learning. So teachers of young children are very good at knowing the curriculum. They have to know the curriculum really well and know what it is that we're wanting to teach, and we're wanting to make sure that students understand and moving them to the next point in that understanding. Now, we also have some checks along the way that are common across a grade. So we would have common assessments across a grade, and they look different in K1 to grade 1 even, but they are the same assessment. They're carried out in the same way, and then that data that's collected is looked at as a grade to see what the needs are and what we need to be adding into our program in order to make sure that those students are moving forward and reaching the benchmarks that they need to reach.
And I think just to add on that, the curriculum kind of cycles back to things. So you do addition and subtraction multiple times through a year, and you do it in every grade, so that's where you get the depth. And I think the bit I was talking about earlier, where we try really hard to really challenge children's thinking and make them think outside the box, that's what builds the depth of knowledge rather than a superficial knowledge. So we do have, as well as these conceptual understandings, we have very specific benchmark. So I was teaching grade 1 maths this morning, and a very specific benchmark is read and write numbers to 120 and beyond. So that's very specific, whereas the conceptual understanding is much bigger because it goes from K to grade 12.
So tell me then, Vicky, do students in our infant school have homework?
Well, no, because we exhaust them. They work so hard when they're here. They go home and have a rest, hopefully. But we do really strongly encourage families to spend time with their children playing board games, talking to them about their day. And actually, our homework in infant school is reading. We do ask families to read consistently with their children, which is reading to them and with them, and also having their child read to them when that time comes. So that is what we classify as homework. And obviously, as they go through primary school, that gradually builds so that the children are ready for the next stage.
Terrific, thank you. I have a question here for Malika, if you don't mind jumping in. The question is it possible to enrol for a Term 2 entry for K1?
Thanks for the question, Lucy. The answer is yes, absolutely. Now, with everything to do with Term 2 enrollment, I need to caveat that by saying that we do open applications for Term 2, but any Term 2 space availability is very much dependent on whether or not we have leavers from that particular cohort, from that particular grade, during our Term 1. So typically we will make our Term 2 offers sometime in October. And that's because by then we have passed our internal withdrawal deadline for families who are part of our current community who will be leaving the college because typically they're being relocated elsewhere. So yes, it's possible to apply or be considered for a Term 2 entry even for K1.
Terrific. Thank you, Malika. Whilst I have you, I'm going to go to another admissions-related question. And that is, if I submit my application by September, when are the selection results typically announced?
Sure. So the other day we hosted our Admissions Explained webinar, and I'm just going to encourage everyone again to take a look at that because we shared a lot of detailed information about our process, including the timeline. That's also, of course, posted on our website. So essentially, if families meet our first round application deadline, which is in early November, then they can be considered for our first round offer, and those are made in December. Now, if we're not able to offer a child a place in our December offer round or our first offer round, then we will continue to consider that application up until our second offer round, which is in March. So a family does not need to reapply if they did not get an offer in our first round. They continue to be considered. But when it comes to our second offer round, then we're considering them along with those who applied subsequently. And I want to just remind everyone that it's not a first come, first served system. So as long as you submit a completed application in time for each of our application deadlines, your child will be considered for the corresponding offer round and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you, Malika. This is a question I think you can all probably contribute to. So the question is, for K1 intake, what is the English requirement for the children? And what is the expectation in terms of comprehension and speaking? Malika, would you like to start? And then perhaps we can hand over to Tracy and Vicky as well.
Certainly. Thanks for the question, Lucy. So in lots of conversations with our educational colleagues, our colleagues on the educational side, I think we've arrived at a good understanding that children are obviously developing their language and literacy skills at this very young age. And so we're certainly not expecting students for whom English is not their first language to be fluent speakers or readers or writers of the language. However, we are operating in an English medium of instruction environment. And so it's important to us that children coming in have at least some familiarity so that they can follow teacher instructions, so that they can participate in the activities without needing significant support. So I'm going to let Tracy and Vicky jump in and add to that. But that's what our understanding is of the kind of expectations. I think I also just want to remind everyone that we do set these expectations out quite clearly on our website. So I would encourage people to look at our EAL page for those for whom that's relevant.
Yeah, and I think just to add to what Malika said, we're super fortunate in the fact that we have so many children that are multilingual learners. It's really impressive. I wish I had the skills they have at 4, 5, and 6 years old. And Malika's right. Any child that comes into school, we want them to thrive, whether that's language, whether that's socially, whether that's with the academics. So we want them to feel that they're part of an environment and can communicate. And actually, communication looks very different for different children. So one of the things I know has come through the questions is about assessment. And I'm sure, Lucy, you'll ask a question about that in a moment. But part of the meet and play sessions is to see how a child is able to communicate in that setting, and that doesn't necessarily mean that they have to be able to speak to me in English. Children have lots of ways of communicating, and actually that's what we're looking for. If children are able to sit and engage with a story, if they're able to smile at an adult or play with another friend, and actually children don't always need English to be able to do that, particularly in K1. I can see you're nodding, Tracy. I know we align in our thinking around EAL learners.
Absolutely. And I mean, as Malika mentioned, all young children are language learners. They're just at different places within that language learning. So yeah, the communication can happen in a number of different ways. I think where we are careful is if we have a large number of students who are not speaking English or not speaking very much English, we don't have as many role models around to actually support them with that. So balance is always important, but really they're all learning language. So it's about communication.
Terrific. Thank you. I've just had a question come in, Vicky, that you might want to just take regarding the meet and play. Can you tell us more about what to expect at the meet and play sessions, especially bearing in mind shy or multilingual children? So maybe Vicky, you can start, and Tracy, you can add.
Yeah, so Tracy and I, when we started to work together, we're really keen to look at how we support our K1 learners when they come into school. And we've both worked at schools where we've been in schools where you do an interview and all sorts of things. And for us, we really wanted a way of bringing our 4-year-olds into our setting, into our campus. So every child that's here in Singapore will be invited for a meet and play session. As a mum of very shy children, I can understand why there is some concern and worry about a child starting a meet and play session. And really, I just want to tell families not to worry. We've seen everything. We've seen crying, we've seen running, we've seen children who don't wave to their parents. We've seen it all. And it's early childhood educators that do those sessions. So we're very used to working with young children. So I would say, as much as it's easy for me to say this, please try not to worry about the meet and play session. It's just an opportunity for children to come in. We bring in about 10 children at a time, and they basically just play for an hour with us, and they play with our adults and our teaching assistants, and we're all engaging with the children. Parents get to go and have a coffee and relax while it's happening and we look after them. And that's just one piece of the application process. It's not the only part of whether your child will be offered a place. It's just one thing. And parents will ask what we're looking for. We're just looking for children who are showing us the skills of being able to be ready to cope with our environment. And if your child is somebody that cries and gets upset, that's not a box that we have on the criteria. If they cry, then there's things we can do. Sometimes we invite them back when they're a little bit older. There's all sorts of things we can do. So please, I can understand why that is a concern, but from an early childhood educator's perspective and from a mum, it's not a concern, and they do stop crying eventually. I learned with my own children as they get older. Tracy?
No, and you know, they say that children who don't separate well from parents, it's actually a really strong sign of good relationships, and it's actually a positive thing. So we certainly don't put a little red X or anything like that if they don't separate from you. We would expect to see some of that. But yeah, it's really, they come in and they play. It's about how they engage with our environment, with each other, whether we think we're going to be able to meet their needs, and they're going to, the environment suits them and their needs as well. And we usually have a story or a song or something where we come together, and then the session's over. It's fairly quick, but it's always a lot of fun. It's one of my favorite times of the week.
And Lucy, just to clarify, East and Dover run the sessions. We run them, we discuss and we run them together, so they look the same. So you may have a session at East if you're a dual applicant, for example, but it doesn't mean that then you would automatically be assigned a place at East. It's just that we work together so that it's an equal kind of balance of numbers.
Terrific, thank you. So I do have a question here about, are there any differences in infant school between the two campuses? Asking for a K1 intake. Who would like to pick that one up first?
I can definitely start. We both visited each other's campuses, so we're quite familiar. And I think the main thing to understand is that our curriculum is identical. We have the identical curriculum, and any curriculum development is done dual campus. So people from both campuses part of that. Our missions align, and Tracy and I and our approach in infant school is aligned. We meet regularly and we have the same approach to learning, which you will have heard is very play-based. But there are some differences because humans are different. And so the makeup of teachers and children and adults in that space define a little bit about what the environment will feel like, particularly in a school and a curriculum that's so responsive to children's needs. So even within one campus, every classroom will feel a little different. Every space will feel different. And even year to year, they feel different because humans are different. And also physically, our setups look different, but sometimes our classrooms are familiar. So when I look at pictures from East, sometimes I have to work out if it's East and Dover, because our teachers do create environments that are very similar.
I did the same thing on some of those slides. I was like, now, is that East or is that Dover? So they are very similar, very similar. Yeah. I don't think there's much more I would add to that. Vicky and I we've always met regularly, and we really do try and align, as much as we can. Like I said, like Vicky mentioned earlier, the meet and play, we planned and have organised that together. It's not something that just one campus does in a different way to the other. So.
And I suppose the other difference is that K2 at East has 5 classrooms, whereas Dover has 4, and grade 1 has 6, and we have 5. So they're slightly bigger by 2 classes. And I know Malika has shared that we don't open at Dover applications for K2, whereas East do. So that's another kind of size difference.
True. Yeah.
Thank you for answering that, because that question also came through in the chat. What is the teacher to student ratio then for infant school?
So we have in K1 and K2, we have 3 adults with 22 students. And in grade 1, we have 2 adults with 24 students.
Terrific, thank you. Tracy, another question for you. What is our approach to technology in the infant school, please?
Okay, so technology is always a really interesting one, and we have within the infant school, all the children have access to iPads. But I'd say the best way to describe the use is to say that we use iPads only when it enhances the learning. They're not there as babysitting tools or anything like that. We really want to make sure that we're using them when they enhance the learning. If there's another way to do it that's better, then that's the way that we would opt for. We also talk a lot about using technology to create rather than, like I said before, with entertaining. So we're looking if there are often ways that we can create using technology, and it's not just the iPad, but we're trying to teach students new skills when they're using that, not just using it for the sake of using it. And of course, we want them to learn to be responsible in their use of technology, and that goes all the way through the school. And we do have a curriculum around that we work towards, but it starts as soon as they come in. Is how we, what choices are we making around technology and how are we using it responsibly? Do you want to add anything else, Vicky?
No, I think that's the most important thing. Like I was talking to the children about restricting, like why we have restrictions on how much time we look at a screen. And I think all of that is I think to remove them completely is, in the world that they're living in, I think the most important thing we can do is prepare them for a world where, when I first started teaching, being a YouTuber was not a job that existed, whereas now 4-year-olds know that's a job that exists. So we have to prepare children for technology and how it can be used for great things, but also there's other sides as well. So I think we start that quite early in our K1 program.
Terrific, thank you. So I have a question here, quite a few questions about music, and we've responded talking about the, music is part of the timetable, the structured timetable, but there is also an option for students to pick up extracurricular music through the ITP program. So there's lots of options for music and other activities. We've had questions around swimming and so on. I guess that opens up to a broader question. How many services and activities should or could a student in infant school choose?
So this is something that Tracy and I talk about a lot as well. And we're always torn, right? We're both parents of very children who are very athletic and so do a lot of activities. But we're also see as early childhood educators, our children get up very early to catch their school bus to school, and we work them hard during the day. So at the end of the day, many of them just need a break or some downtime. And so we do restrict, for want of a better word, after school commitments, but it is progressive. So we restrict heavier in the beginning of K1. So by the end of K1, they can do 2 activities here on Dover. And then K2, it's 3, and then grade 1, it's 4, and then grade 2, it's 5, and lunch times. So it's definitely progressive. And actually that really does seem to work for our children, because many of them do still have outside of school activities as well. And sometimes we work closely with families to say, we think they benefit from doing a physical activity, or we think they benefit from doing a creative activity. Many of our children do language activities. So we do restrict it. But that's partly because of what we know about young children. And I know I saw some questions coming through about activities and buses. So we do allow children to take what we call the 3 p.m. bus, which is a bigger bus and has the older children on it. So I think parents need to know that, but we do allow them to take that bus if they do an activity, because infant activities run from 2 p.m., roughly 2 p.m. till 3 p.m.
Terrific.
And I think that's the same at East, right, Tracy, for activities?
Very, very similar. We increase it as they go up, and we can take the bus at 3 p.m.
Great. We have 2 minutes left. So one final question, which is a great question. The school is large. How do we support the youngest children? Vicky, do you want to start with that?
I was actually talking to a parent about this morning, and she said to me, I remember in your presentation that you said the youngest children are the ones that walk around like they own school. And it's so true. Our 4-year-olds they're just so confident. I think the key thing is we're progressive with what we expose them to. So they're in a small pod. Both East and Dover have this small pod community. So their world exists in that community. Their bathrooms are there. Their specialists are close by. The other classrooms are there within K1. So they feel very protected in that space. And families always say to me, you said this would be like this, but I couldn't imagine it. And I know it's hard to imagine them on such a big campus, but whenever they walk anywhere, they're with adults. So we take them everywhere. Whenever we expose them to larger events, for most children, that's super exciting that they get to see the high school children. Our high school children come into classes, and so they feel proud because they've got an older student that they're friends with. So we do keep their world quite contained, I guess, for want of a better word, and safe, but we do want them to feel part of a bigger identity in a bigger place. So we do take them out on trips. They go find the tadpoles, for example, and they have to walk through the high school building, and they actually walk with so much confidence. This parent said to me, she said to me, Mummy, you don't need to take me anymore, I'm fine. And she said, she went. So I think we do a good job of building that when they're ready and in a supportive, safe way. So for children that might be overwhelmed by the noise of a big event, then they will stay with an adult and they'll only do the bits that they are ready for. So again, very personalized.
Yeah, very similar. We often talk about starting as a class community, a grade level community, and then an infant community as how we sort of build it up, that they become familiar with their class, their grade and then the infant school, and then beyond that. And there are different occasions where they all go to different spaces. But like Vicky said, it's always with adults. It's always supported with conversations and photos, and so they know where they're going. They feel familiar. They have buddies in the primary school and the high school that they know that they really love to see out and about as well. So yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Tracy. Thank you, Vicky. I think that signals the end of our Q&A, and I will hand back to you now, Malika. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucy. I'm just going to quickly invite Brian and Pauline to turn their screens on so that we can do a very quick thank you and goodbye to our principals and our vice principals. Thank you all very much. I always learn a couple of new things in these sessions, and today was no exception to that. So thank you very much for your time. And to our audience, of course, a really special thank you for giving up your time to join us and learn more about our infant school today, and for considering UWC for your child or children. I'm just going to request our audience members to hang in there for another quick minute or two. We do have a closing survey with a QR code that I'm going to share in a moment. So thank you, principals and vice principals, and I will share my screen for our audience for our concluding slide. Okay, so just bear with me, and here is the QR code that will take you to a very quick survey. I promise you it's very short, and we would really appreciate your feedback. So if you could quickly scan that and give us some quick feedback on today's webinar, we'd love to hear from you. And I also want to thank everyone and also say that we very much look forward to seeing you on campus if you have registered for one of our open days on campus, as well as if you plan to join any future webinars. And just a reminder that today's webinar is being recorded, and the recording will be posted within a couple of days. And we also already have our Admissions Explained webinar recording available for you on our website. So with that, we come to the end of today's Infant School webinar, and we very much look forward to seeing you in the very near future. Thank you so much, and have a lovely rest of your day.